No, they're 7 and 9. They're huge. By the time Kristina reopens, we'll find another.
The first time I came by the restaurant, Russ did
Oh, really? Okay, that was 2.5 years ago, exactly, in July. And it was right before they were going to open their restaurant, actually. So we did a collaboration dinner and
How is Eddie?
He's good.
Is he still with Sanami?
No, that's PK. But they're friends.
Oh, okay. Oh my
Yeah.
God, I thought they were, because I always see, just like you're saying, I always see them together. I always thought that was his girlfriend.
No, it's,
Speaking.
they're all good friends.
Yes.
Girlfriend's name is Claudia.
Claudia.
And
Oh, awkward.
I don't care. Okay. I'm not judging. This is San Antonio. There's plenty of that in here.
Oh, what are you talking about?
There is. There is. Been invited to several. So yes, I haven't gone. I mean, I just found out.
Just follow the Instagram page.
It's on the south side. It's a coffee roaster. Yes. So we do serve coffee there, but I call it more as a showroom. I do a lot of community outreach also, but I do more of a community outreach than anything else.
How far down Florida is it?
So if you jump into Provence and you go on Provence under the bridge and go to West Mitchell like you were going to Boulders, I'm right before Boulders.
So Florida is in Mitchell.
yes, and then do edits, and then
So you pass Boulders, you just go out to the light, and that's my business is right before the light.
On Mitchell.
On Mitchell, yes. Like I'm super
you had already said a lot of
exactly.
it.
And so then I was like, am I repeating myself?
Nah, just keep.
And then getting tongue-tied and twisted.
because you have to see and be seen, so I feel like
Experience-driven dining restaurant. No.
Yeah.
So what are you getting me? Congratulations.
That's the lucky.
Yes, no, you're the lucky guy. She's like, yeah, whatever you're saying, I'm still doing. No.
You talked about my
He's the lucky guy.
He's awesome. He's smart.
Yeah, he runs computer house smart. I love that. My kids are like that. They fight for it. They just don't function without it. That's the kind of parent I am. It's hard. My daughters are in camp, but they're at the museum right now. Yes. They do. My kids don't get to say that they have a free ride. They earn their free for sure. They do. They put labels on the coffee bags. They help me weigh coffee. Wow. They're so they know everything is weighed twice. So once they weigh it, yes. So we have a yes, but they know
call each
that.
other out if they're wrong.
Camera 2 set.
You put the label wrong. Yes, that's crooked. Oh my God, when it's crooked, Valentina, the little one, the 7-year-old, and she's such a perfectionist. She's like,
So what are some of the other questions that you're going to be asking?
Camera 2 set.
that's
Yeah.
So when we come back on live, is there a way, I don't know, for me to ask them if I can collaborate since we got everybody, and then I need to recover
Zoom
from
in so it's like the whole frame.
but just to,
Or it's like this.
Snort some coffee.
yeah, I wanted to kind of add on to what our restaurant is actually about and so forth because I missed all of that.
Get paid? I have not. I've been working for 5 years and I have not.
So when we come back on, he's gonna transition. I'm just gonna add a little bit more onto
Yes,
top of
yes,
that, like
yes.
what the difference was, like how we
Do that. You didn't get to say
I
any
was
of
just
that.
like,
Camera too set.
Don't worry, I'm not stressed out. You get to
yes.
Can we just do that part again?
The only people watching are really your mom and my mom, so
Right.
we're good.
That's right.
Yes. My dad is not even watching, so.
That's right.
I'm getting text messages.
Course, all I want.
It's not calm though.
So at the beginning of this pandemic, I actually had a for and they were taking my mugshot.
I'm left.
No.
They're all pissed.
And then, well, like, I'm reading, it is miserable. And the guys are just like trying to get my bill paper, so he was buying me snacks. Like, oh, we were just having like a whippering.
It is. You know it? What?
Like, what else would it be? Huh? I'm friends with Zhao
Are we live?
You're like,
Oh, we're live? Oh, hello everyone. My name is Matthew Espinosa. This is happy day one of San Antonio Entrepreneurship Week. Today's panel is focused on San Antonio small business, and we're talking about creative resiliency during the time of COVID. I want to give a huge shout out to the Launch SA team and the Symbio Hush team for help put this day and the rest of the week together. So to kick things off, I would like each of the panelists to kind of tell us a little bit about themselves and their company, and maybe a little bit about the founding story of how you got started.
Hi everyone, my name is Daniel Trevino, here representing Box Street Social. And I guess it started 5 years ago, actually June 5th, 5 years ago, 2015. Edward and I met about a year before that at a CrossFit gym. The CrossFit gyms are called boxes, so that's part of our name. And Edward, so he knew I owned restaurants. I have restaurant experience. I've been an owner of restaurants since I was 24. And he was a chef, classically trained chef. So that's kind of how we connected. And he would have Sunday socials at his house, invite 100 more people and he would cook for all of them. First of all, the food was delicious, but if y'all have ever, cooked for 100 people, it's really hard to do, and he would do it by himself and serve everyone. So that was very impressive for me, coming from a restaurant background and seeing what he did and how he did it. And caught my attention. So we started, after our friendship, we started talking more about, hey, why don't we do something together and start a business, put our forces together, so to speak. So we did that. We decided to do a food truck, which was in 2015 was kind of a trend that was coming to San Antonio. It'd been very popular in Austin, Portland, Seattle, California, and it was starting to come up in San Antonio. So we decided to do that, hit the ground running with that. I got a food truck custom made with, according to what our menu or what we thought our menu was going to be, and got it delivered. And we started parking at Alamo Beer in June. We developed a relationship with Alamo Beer because they were a new brewery at the time, and they didn't have any food aspect to them. So it became just a kind of a natural partnership to where we had the food aspect, and they have still a beautiful brewery and the beer to go along with it. So we parked there for a while, and it was really a great success from the get-go, from the beginning. While we were parking there, that's how we got into the catering business. Is a couple kept coming to Alamo Brewery, and when we would park there, and they ended up asking us, do y'all do weddings? And we're like, no, but we can, or we will. And they asked us to do their wedding, and they were the first client that contracted us to do their wedding. And that's how we transitioned into the catering world. And so now we've been doing a lot of weddings, a lot of corporate events. We've done some events with the down market, which have been great. Met them about 2 years ago as well. Invited them over to our 3rd year anniversary party at the Monty and Ivy, and that was a hit. If any of y'all went, that will never leave your mind because it was really, really good. Anyway, so we developed a relationship with them. That's another thing we love to do, is just develop relationships with our community, and anyone that's doing anything in the community, we love to reach out to them, or they reach out to us, and we're all for doing anything that's necessary, and we've done a lot of them. So fast forward, we are now opening, or we signed a lease in October to open a brick and mortar at the 68 apartments, or the first floor of the 68 apartments at Hemisphere Park. So we're expected to open in November. We've had some setbacks with this pandemic, but we are going to push through, get through it, and we will hopefully be announcing that when we get closer. So thank you all very much.
Hello, everyone. My name is Kristina Zhao. Thanks for having me here. My family and I have the Asia market at the corner of Evers and Wurzbach. And 5 years ago, we also opened a restaurant called Sichuan House. And so my background is in communications and public relations. And when I first got into the restaurant business as a pretty newcomer, without any experience, even like a serving position in college, that never happened. But when we opened, I was thinking, well, we have to do something a little bit different. We have to create an experience out of this. There's so many Chinese restaurants in this city, but they don't capture the experience of food, of eating together. Food is such a huge component of our lives, and it brings us all together. So the way that we do our food is served family style, and we really try to showcase the stories and the meaning behind where the food comes from, and the origins of the dishes and the regional style cooking. So we specialize in Sichuan style cuisine. And we've been around for about 5 years now, and we feel like we're a part of the San Antonio community, and we're happy to be here.
Hello, my name is Patricia Butler.
Can you hear me? Yes. And I am the owner or co-owner of Coffeecionado Community Roasters. My background is back in the day, I was actually an interpreter for the courts, and I got to travel a lot with the United Nations and the World Bank to many different countries. And I got to see coffee farms that were being worked by women, and the disparities and their needs needed to be exposed, I would say, and their work needed to be visible. So when I decided to go back to the workforce, I opened a coffee business where we only purchase coffee from female farmers, from farms that are only worked by women as well. We bring the coffee here into the United States, and we teach people at our roaster how to roast their coffee as a personal experience or for their own business. My goal is to allow business owners to own their own brand, to own their own own their own coffee brand. And that is my passion. Our shop is actually called Community Roasters because we allow communities to come and have a safe place to get together. Most of the groups that come to our roaster are groups that support and empower women. Right now, with the support of 30 female farmers in Colombia, 2 female farmers in Africa, and 1 female farmer in Mexico, we're able to expand. So we're allowing women who have small businesses to get together at the shop. We are making a safe environment for women who are part of the homeless community and they're trying to get back into the workforce to come and meet us, have a coffee, have a sense of normalcy. Also, we do that for women who are in prisons and correction facilities. As they're coming out of their probation time, they come and they have a talk and they have coffee. And so that is what my passion is here in San Antonio. We've been doing that for about 1.5 years. And due to the pandemic, we had to stop, obviously, because we can't allow as many people into the shop. But our purpose is still there. We still deliver coffee to these places. We still try to make them have a good cup of coffee and let them forget a little bit about their current situation and just, have a cup of coffee that fills your heart. And that's what we do.
My name is Boyan Kalusevic, and I'm one of the co-founders at Dorcol Distilling and Brewing Company. We started in 2013 as a craft distillery. We created an apricot brandy that's in the sort of form of a very traditional Serbian family distilling operation. And when I moved to the States as a kid, one of the jokes was eventually we would distill stateside. That finally happened. I blame it on my co-founder. And since 2013, we've been hitting the streets, putting out a pretty fancy, pretty cool tasting brandy, and introduced a really cool beer line. So Kinsman's our spirit brand, High Wheels beer brand, and we're down in South Flores doing our part, I think, in advancing both the San Antonio creative scene, the food and beverage scene, and supporting our space. So thank you for having me.
Awesome. Thank you all. So I think, we talked a little bit about the early part of y'all's companies, and given the topic being about creative resiliency, and this week being all about people thinking about starting companies or just starting their companies, we'd love for y'all to share maybe some stories or ways you had to pivot in the early days of, going back to the March timeframe when this was all happening, and what ways your business had to change. I know for us, everything that I work on is in-person events like this, so it was completely to Zoom calls and virtually trying to recreate that experience. So love anybody who would like to share a little bit.
I guess I'll go first again. So we're in the same business in the sense of, in-person catering. So it really, let's go to March. That's when this really all kicked off. The first 2 weeks of March were great. For us, it's wedding season. So March, April, May is really the hot months for weddings and events, really. But when this hit, of course, the business literally, we put a stop to it. Everything, luckily, nothing got canceled. Everything got postponed. So now things are starting to come back in this quarter. But I literally, no one knew what was happening. It was a new virus, is dangerous, or we just didn't know. So I sent everyone home, really, and said, let's just take a 2-week break. Let's all quarantine. Luckily, we were in the position where I didn't have to let anyone go or furlough anyone. And after those 2 weeks, Eddie and I, started meeting at the warehouse again. We started having Zoom meetings with other employees that, they were still reluctant, and as we all should be still. But I respected everyone's position on what was going on. And we took, we gathered all the information that we could as it came, and there was a lot every single day. So that was the main goal, was to adapt to what was going on and what we were going to do in the future. Of course, the brick and mortar got pushed back 2 months because of this, the banks, everything. Had a lot of Zoom meetings, especially with our brides and with events that were coming up. And there were so many unknowns, though, so even our meetings were unknowns. Okay, so if we're going to push things, when are we going to push it? What date are we going to push it to? And we figured, the summertime and beyond would be the dates to start pushing our events and weddings. And so that's what we did. Honestly, we just stuck together. That's one thing we do pride ourselves in as a company is adapting. We adapt to our brides. We adapt to our corporate clients and what they need and what they want. Well, we adapted to the situation, and now everything's starting to have an uptick to it. So we're excited about that.
Okay. Oh, thank you. So at Sichuan House, we were very experience-driven restaurant. And so 80% of our business was dine-in. To have to close the doors, we have to completely switch our business model altogether. And I remember when it first happened, I think Houston probably shut down that Monday. I think it was March for curbside, because that's what we were instructed to do. But, we talk a lot with members of our community, other business owners and so forth, to find out, hey, what are you doing? Because we were not really given any guidelines. We had to do our own research. Some places were still allowing people to come in to place their orders. We made the decision to go cashless to eliminate contact. So the first few days were very focused on safety implementation. And then after we kind of got a grasp on that, and then in the meantime, I'm running back and forth between the market and the restaurant because they're so close to each other. And the two are totally different. The market, there's no way we can just close the doors and prevent people from coming in the way that we can with the restaurant and setting things outside. So that's a whole different story. But after we figured out the safety implementations, then we needed to figure out, okay, how do we maintain sales? How do we get this product, our food, to our customers? So we did end up pivoting and created a new experience called the Concierge Hospitality Experience, where now we are bringing hospitality to you. We didn't have delivery before, and we were able to create a delivery service in-house and manage a new type of experience. And of course, all with the use of lots of technology. I think we were very lucky in the decisions we made with our business prior to, in having the fundamental components in getting switched over to be able to reach our customers in that way, in a takeout and delivery only way. Oh, you got your own.
Thank you.
Well, for us,
like you guys, we were also we're about to start the wedding season, and we had scheduled all these couples to come and roast coffee for their wedding favors, and that was heartbreaking because we couldn't bring people in. We had to stop. We had to close the shop, and so it was super heartbreaking. I remember going home and crying, driving and crying. Still super hard. But then I saw the news and I saw that there were 500,000 people in San Antonio without food. And I was like, oh my God, we have to help them out. I have to stop feeling sorry about myself, about sales. And I have to think about San Antonio and San Antonians. And I talked to my husband. I remember us hugging our daughters, thinking, there's children that are going without right now because both their parents have lost their jobs. And it's not just poor people now anymore. It's actually managers of offices, managers of restaurants, people who are middle class, who have both parents lost their jobs. And we made the decision that we still had to keep some of the people at work because they can't afford we couldn't not pay them. And so we grabbed the people who wanted to still come back to work. Not everybody did, and we respect that too. And we started roasting the same amount of coffee we were roasting for the shop. We started roasting it, and we started donating it to the San Antonio Food Bank. And that's how we turned it in. So we still produce, we still roasted. We got to the point where and that is our maximum capacity because we are still a very small roaster, but we got to the point where we were donating 1,200 bags of coffee for every week for San Antonio. And it was so beautiful having someone when we first opened thank me and tell me that because my coffee was in their basket, that it made their day, because so many people think that coffee is a luxury, but for so many, it's a necessity. You can't function. You can't do anything if you haven't had your first cup of coffee. And to find in the little bag, in the little basket, a bag of coffee made their day. And so now we're having people that are coming curbside and buying and thanking me. I'm not obviously asking them, well, where do you get the coffee from, you know? But they're thanking me. They're thanking us for doing that. And so we've switched it completely into thinking, we are a community roaster. What can we do for the community? And now that we're able to open to a 50%, our place is always full to the capacity that we're able to get in. And so that is San Antonio loving back to us. And we will continue because the pandemic is not over. This is not over. We still have to be very safe. It's still a lot of homes that are a lot of people who have not been able to go back to their jobs. So we're still continuing to donate coffee. Now we have volunteers from all walks of life. They come here, thank you, and they just come and grind coffee and bag it with us because our supply to the San Antonio, the promise that we've made is still there. So if anybody wants to come and volunteer, give me your number, call me, and I'll be calling you back for sure.
You know, for 7 years, we kind of made a commitment to chefs and bartenders. That was kind of our space. And, you know, had someone told me that every single restaurant and bar would have closed in one day, you know, short of zombies, you know, walking on South Flores, I would have thought it was a joke because, you know, what could have caused that? And, you know, on that March day, literally every single bar and restaurant closed. And, you know, we were a little bit lucky in that, you know, some legislative stuff changed late last year that allowed us to do some on-premise sales of canned beer, and we had a novelty Betty that some of you are getting to enjoy. Cheers. And all of a sudden, you know, with an ability to do beer to go, and with some really generous folks at the HEB Arsenal, we were able to get some product out into the community where otherwise we wouldn't have been able to sell to anybody. So I think once the original sort of catastrophic piece got past us on, are we going to be able to stay open? That city ordinance allowed us to operate in the food supply chain component. And at that point, we just wanted to spend literally every bit of bandwidth supporting the bars and restaurants that were doing something to go. So, connected with one chef who was doing a pizza offer, and he threw in a 6-pack of Betty. And for the next 2 days, all we did on our social media channels was find ways to support what he's doing and get the word out about their restaurant. Leading into that weekend, I think some other chefs reached out and said, hey, we'd love to bring in a Betty as a family pack. So we then started going back to the exact same accounts that we've supported over the last 5-6 years and said, hey, we've got this beer. If you're looking to stay open, if you want to do beer to go, we want to be part of that. And that's kind of where we reshuffled our effort. There was no more on-premise at our premise. It was all about how do we make sure when this is over, our accounts, our chefs and bartenders had places to go back to and open again. And that's I think the hardest part in all this is as it drags out what that effect is going to be on those on-premise accounts. So, we're in this 30, 60 days, 90 days already. It's been a little bit longer. Our team is the same team that we had back in March, and we committed to everybody. If they're committed to coming back to work, we'll continue to employ them. So we do some, we're trying to figure out how to reopen as the summer kind of comes in. And I think that'll be the interesting piece. How do you not take away from the experience? Because for us, we built our entire business model around doing some really creative stuff. And, as that kind of evolves, what's the guest expecting? What are we able to execute? How do you do that safely, responsibly? And then hopefully make $1, right?
I think an underlying part that maybe each of us are here today is because there's such a huge tie to the community. We're here to support the community, and the community in return supports us. And I would say all of our businesses have been impacted differently. We've been forced to look at alternative ways to make our businesses sustainable while still taking care of as many people as possible. So it's good to be alongside you guys.
I was going to touch on that a little bit. It's been mentioned around the community and how different businesses have created partnerships or tried different things. I would love to kind of talk a little bit from the customer aspect, where there's some cool customer stories or some ways customers have been either receptive or maybe that experience is just completely different working with them. Any stories along the lines of that?
So due to this, it gave us a lot of time to think and kind of create maybe even another business aspect and that's or entity, and that's what we did. We partnered with Zhao from Swinehouse, and we're now doing a Butcher Series. So that's actually that's what it's called. It's called the Butcher Series. So it's basically Bok Street Social with Swinehouse. We buy grass-fed cows and pigs, and so it's a natural raised animal, and we're butchering ourselves. And now we're gonna launch the online, or we have already launched the online first, and we plan on creating that into a retail space. But got to crawl before we can walk. So right now we're doing packaged meats, and if you guys check us out on our Instagram, either ours or Swinehouse's, Bok Street Social or Swinehouse, you click on our bio, and it gives you all the information about what we're doing. I encourage you to check it out.
So, as I mentioned before, we have traditionally been a dine-in focused restaurant. And so we did have takeout business. We did not have delivery. And when we have to operate under those conditions, we have to look at how we're going to get our product to our customer. And the way that our customers have helped us, our guests have helped us so tremendously, is giving us the feedback while we're developing this program. We were not on, a lot of people are using Uber Eats, they're using DoorDash, they're using Grubhub and Favor, not realizing that all of those companies, while they're not necessarily bad companies, they serve marketing purposes, definitely, but they're also asking for 30%, 20% of your profit margins. How do we get around that? And so when what we did during this time, we finally got our website up, Sichuaneats.com. It's a very, very simple landing page. And our guests were crucial in building that page out to make sure that the message on there was clear. What are our hours of operation? How do you order from us? How do you order for pickup versus delivery? What's important to put in front of your customer right now, because we have to get it, we have to service or provide that service. And that's how our customers have really reached out. We did a lot of pilot testing within our first deliveries. It was like, hey, Patricia, what are you doing today? Can I send out some food to you? And we would go through the whole texting experience of the messages that we would send out that traditionally or not traditionally, and otherwise you would have maybe Uber Eats do it for you. We actually were rejected by them. They said that we were not the right fit for them. So we said, okay, that's fine. That's fine.
Better for you.
Right. So it's been an interesting experience, and coming out of it now, like my dining room is now set up in stations. There's 3 or 4 stations that we're quadruple checking every single order. Like I was mentioning earlier, we have no reason to be messing up on orders anymore. And so we are trying really hard to not do that.
Oh, trading.
Just like you guys, we had to figure out what we were gonna do because we sell a product that is packaged. We already had a wonderful website that the down market had built for us. We just never used it because we got so comfortable having so many people at the shop that I just never did it. I didn't, and so we put our product online, our line of coffees. We expanded. We now have a very healthy, from having 0 customers logging into the site to buy a bag of coffee. Now we have a very healthy website, and we have most of our sales for bag coffee come from sales online, and promoting the coffee on Instagram and on Facebook. Social media is, thank God can you imagine if we were going through this without any type of social media? I think we would have ended up closing. And so we started moving and recycling all the pictures that we've had throughout the year. Actually, it's been 2 years that we've been working with the down market and creating content. And so now we're recycling and sending everything out. And so that's what's kept us going. And now we have a very healthy website. But even if that wasn't the case, the curbside thing worked. But like you were saying, those companies, which there's nothing wrong with it, but for a coffee shop where a coffee can cost $3.50 to $4, and giving them 30 to 35% of the profit, they're already taking all of my profit. And so we started encouraging people just to come, give us a call, call us, and we'll just come to outside, and we'll bring the coffee to them. Because we still have to survive. We still have to pay the mortgage. We still have to pay utilities. We still have to pay the bills. And that has made me, for sure, come out of the box and figure out other ways of making my product relevant for the San Antonio community, to have them always remember that Coffeecionado is on the south side, where we're cool because it's the hood. And so, and just letting them know that pretty soon we're going to be able to open up pretty soon, I always with that idea that this too shall pass. This too shall pass. We just have to change a few things. And when it does, we'll be ready to open our patio and have roast and have have get-togethers at the shop, but let's concentrate on the good memories that we had of the place. And let me show you what we did last year around this time last year, and what our products are going to be for next year, because people still like coffee. I like coffee. I can drink it every day.
Right.
So can you? Not you.
She's calling me out for coffee. Thinking back about, to the early March, I guess, or middle March, we started we downloaded an app that allows you to text in an order, because alcohol sales are heavily regulated. So there's a lot of technology pieces that may work in.
But now you can take them to go.
Well, yes. Now you can take them to go. We're lucky that the timing of that was
Perfect.
was perfect. Yeah, if you in hindsight, right? But we'll receive a text message now at 11 or at noon, and somebody who's working from home is sneaking in a quick lunch break and running to a local brewery or distillery to support a local manufacturer. And that's kind of the interesting pieces as the text message threads grow over the last 2 or 3 months. You're building a relationship with a guest that you otherwise wouldn't have if they just bought our beer at the bar or drank our beer at another bar. And that's kind of interesting, interaction that we wouldn't have necessarily considered pursuing. The margins shrunk, but the relationships grew stronger. And then, I think the piece about, not being able to have happy hours in person, and we started pivoting to a virtual Wednesday happy hour. We've, spun a wheel and given away merch or, I don't know, T-shirts and bottles of booze. One of the interesting things are, being able to engage with folks over social media that under normal circumstances, we've sort of had to balance between other bars and restaurants and our premise and producing larger events, things that you can't do anymore. And then really focus on that one-on-one communication. How do you get the responses? How do you get folks engaged? And then how does that translate into the bottom line? And I think that's kind of, having folks work from home allowed them, I think, a little bit more freedoms, allowed them to support us in hours that weren't normally our experience in the past, and try to build a stronger bond.
I think for us here, we're going to come out of this stronger than we were before. And in a way, it's the challenge of being an entrepreneur itself. And you have to be resilient. You have to think outside the box. And in many ways, this COVID-19 era has evened out the playing field a little bit, because you have some businesses that are so big that they have no choice but to furlough employees, because they have to sustain somehow to be able to reopen when that time comes. Whereas we're a little bit smaller, we can take care of people more on an individualistic level from both our guests as well as our staff, and we're going to be okay.
And there were really good programs. The PPP was a wonderful program. Unfortunately, it didn't get to reach everybody, but we were one of the companies that was a recipient, and that allowed us to keep our employees and wait out. Right now the sales are not as high as they were, in January, February. It's allowed us to keep the people that wanted to stay with us. And like you said, figure out this is a new normal. I hate saying that, but it is the truth. It's such a cliche that it's going to have to be
Well, it's
used
going to be like
used,
this for a
yes,
little
for a
while,
long
because
time.
we're still expecting second and third waves and so forth.
Yeah. So we have a little bit under about 10 minutes, I think. And, with this week, Entrepreneurship Week being focused on, maybe people being in situations where they're thinking about starting a business or they're just starting business. From y'all's perspective, if someone was starting, whether it's a brick and mortar or catering, something in food or drinks, what would be your advice after kind of, going through this period and, what they need to think about?
I don't know if it's advisable to start something right now if you don't have,
Yeah.
Not to discourage anybody, but it's
Sure.
definitely a challenge that I'm not the right person to answer that question.
I am starting a brick and mortar in this era, and what I did was
It's not a solid product to begin with.
Well, yes.
You have Box Street Social.
But most people
right?
that would open something are going to have a solid product.
Right
or
now.
what I did or what I would suggest. I'll talk about the brick and mortar side. What I would suggest is really, first of all, I'd like to say restaurants are the top regulated health industry, I think, in the world. This is before COVID. So we are already used to doing very deep cleaning, hand washing constantly. Everything has to be the temperature so that bacteria does not form, whether it be cold or hot. And I'd like to say that first of all. So we were already kind of equipped for this. Now, what COVID has done is raise that bar to another level. And I don't see it coming back down, which is a great thing. It's a great thing for everyone. And not just for COVID, but other things that are airborne or passed on, right? If someone's trying to open a brick and mortar, that's one thing that I really would stress to them to really research, to really know the ins and outs of the health codes. Nothing was actually handed to us during COVID, or even right now, even still to this day. The regulations that are in place were created by restaurants. They weren't created by a government or a CDC. We gave it to them, to be honest. So that being said, excuse me, I'm rambling with that, but I think it's very important from now and moving forward, if you're opening a brick and mortar, to study that, to really follow it, design your restaurant in a way that it could be converted to counter service. I actually had my restaurant designed and finished before COVID. Design, not the build out, just the design. And we went in and redesigned the whole thing now because of this. So now we'll be able to sustain if another wave comes or if anything else happens. And that's what I would suggest is to really look at the regulations, design your restaurant according to what's going on, and you'll be good now and possibly have longevity.
I think if a newly minted entrepreneur was going to ask for a piece of advice, then I'd say be absolutely committed to what you're wanting to do, because the amount of work and the amount of flexibility you'll have to demonstrate is much harder. It'll take much longer. It'll cost more. You have to be wanting to give it your whole. Otherwise, there's a whole lot of easier ways to make money than be an entrepreneur. So I think if the underlying strength is your commitment to your craft and your idea, then dive into it. Whether it's COVID pre or post or during, if you'll find a way to make it work. We had a really good team in place where everybody was committed to the cause and dove into it. Folks that got hired to do one thing are doing an entirely different thing, but to perpetuate the same cause. And that is, make some great spirits and beer and let folks enjoy it. So, have that resiliency internally, and then find ways to continue to push forward.
I think that if you have a dream, if you want to, and that your dream is to own your business, go for it. It doesn't matter if you're having to do it, not right now, because things are so different. People are able to sell their products in a lighter way. You can go to a co-op. You can go to a space where they allow different vendors to be there. And I think you guys, it took us time for all of us to get to where we are. And so opening a business, your own business, it's nerve-wracking. But if you partner up with people who allow you to start small and scale up as time goes by, that'll be better for right now. I think it's so much better, especially in the food industry. If you can start at farmers markets, if you can start at just a weekend pop-up, That'll be a lot better than just jumping into a brick and mortar right now, because you still, with a brick and mortar, the problem that a lot of people are having right now is that they still have to pay rent, regardless of whether they're selling or not. They still have to pay utilities regardless. So trying to be mindful of those things before you jump into opening another coffee shop, just sell it, start selling it. And I do teach that to people when they come to the shop. I always tell them, open a website first and start trying to sell your product online. Because online, you don't need to have a place. You can be at your grandma's living room or kitchen, whipping up some delicious stuff, and nobody's gonna know. So using the laws, the cottage law is wonderful for that.
Mm-hmm. And that's a great point that you bring up. I think it's the four of us here happen to all be in food and beverage, where we do have brick and mortar situations. But this era is a great opportunity to get into online distribution. And how can we, all of our products are on the more perishable end. They need to be consumed in a certain time frame, but we can take this opportunity to figure out how can we get our product reach even further and so forth. So that's a great point to bring up.
Awesome. Well, this time, can we give them a big round of applause, both here in person and virtually? So before we officially close out, I would love for each panelist to just kind of share the best way to get in contact, or see updates, whether it's social media, y'all's website. Those listening and tuning in can support or reach out if they want to try product or get in touch with you.
Well, our website is finally up, www.setsoneats.com, and you can follow us on Instagram at setsoneats.
For us, the best way is Instagram, the Box Street Social. We are constantly updating where we're going to park, when we're going to serve, and so we completely encourage you to follow us, Box Street Social.
Where are you going to be located at the hemisphere? We all want to know exactly which part of hemisphere.
So it's the 68 apartments. It's a new development, 151 unit, and we'll be on the first floor of the 68 apartments. Beautiful patio, overlooks the San Antonio skyline and the Tower of Americas.
When is your expected date?
Expected date is November.
Woo!
Yes.
Our website is coffeecionado.coffee. You can find us at Instagram, Coffeecionado Life, Facebook, Coffeecionado Life, and you can go to a cool drive down the Missions and to the south side of San Antonio, down Provant, and just make a right, and we're right there, and we're open for business.
The best way to keep up with us is Dorcol Spirits, both on the website .com and on the social media outlets. And then if you're not in the neighborhood or can't make the trip down, there's a good way to keep up with us and support the restaurants and bars around town that carry our product. So you can sometimes kill two birds with one stone and swing by a drink High Wheel and Kinsman at a bar in your neighborhood.
I would like to say, we're representing our companies, but please support local throughout San Antonio as well, please.
Great. And with that, thank you, panelists, and thank you for everybody who's tuning in. That concludes the small business panel on creative resiliency. We're going to take a quick lunch break, I believe, and we'll be back with the next panel. Thank you, guys.